Greetings, adventurers. I am your host, Dave Makes Noises, and today on MrRipper, we're asking folks, what's the worst house rule a GM has ever used in your game? I've seen a lot of really annoying or bad ones. My worst encounter was when a player bullied the GM into allowing no limit on the amount of leveled spells you could cast in a turn. No action surge required. That player was the only spellcaster on the team, and he started yelling at me when I voiced to the DM that it wasn't fair. It wasn't a house rule so much as a personal standard, but when one of my friends DM'd, if any player said anything, then that was the law. If you made a joke about fireball shooting out of your ass, then that's the way your character cast the spell. Once I joked to another player, out of character, dude, on my next turn, I'm going to have my characters bite your character's face off so hard. On my next turn, the DM said, you have to do it. You said you would. I said, that was just me joking him, not how you use those words together, not our characters interacting. Obviously, my character wouldn't try to bite his own friend's face off in the middle of a battle. It made us scared to do any joking, banter, or goofing around. It became everyone sitting around silently until their turn. When the DM started nerfing my martial abilities because they weren't things that a regular human could do, despite me pointing out that we have people throwing fireballs from their fingertips. I had a DM who had a house rule that all female characters have a permanent -2 strength modifier. Have more than a few horror stories about that particular DM, but that rule is probably the one that pissed me off the most, as there was no positive to balance it out. I never understood the reasoning for that one, besides the obvious sexism. I have house rules, but I'm not going to tell you what they are. DM said that line to us 4 sessions into a game. I decided not to stay. Had a DM that would only allow sneak attack on the rogue's first turn in combat, and only if the enemy was not aware the rogue existed. We got to level 12 before the campaign exploded, and he was still doing 1d6. Back in the 90s, I briefly played 2nd edition D&D with a DM who had recently gotten way too into Mage the Ascension. He decided it would be a great idea to introduce the mage concepts of vulgar magic, coincidental magic, paradigms, and paradox into D&D in the middle of an ongoing campaign. It didn't work at all. It just made the magic user terrified to use his spells and resulted in a bizarre TPK when he finally started casting again. The DM was making him roll to cast every spell, and after a series of unlucky rolls, we all got dragged off into a paradox realm. I also had a DM who was really proud of the critical hit/fumble tables he had homebrewed. These things were brutal and very, very detailed. Every time somebody rolled a 20 or a 1, the game ground to a halt so that we could roll percentile dice on half a dozen charts and tables. Then something ridiculous would usually happen. We all hated those stupid tables because not only did they slow everything down for no good reason, but they could also result in immediate death or maiming no matter how many hit points you had. My DM has a personal vow to never kill player characters. We're playing Dark Heresy. He's a good guy and a storyteller, and I love our campaigns, but sometimes I really miss some challenge or danger. Insight now only tells their alignment, and only if they were chaotic or lawful. It went from a useful roll to a now useless roll because he didn't like it when we were suspicious of a character and always wanted us to trust them, so that means he can make twists we can see coming from a mile away. Doom points. The way they were described were as random points the DM dishes out to themselves that allows them to do whatever they want, I guess? And he earns them whenever the players would do some anime bullshit. Cannot tell you what any of that is supposed to mean because I jumped ship after session 0. Everything you say out of character is in character. In Initiative, Nat 20s give you an extra turn, and Nat 1s skip your turn on the first round of combat. It takes just about every problem with 5th edition's encounter balance/quality of life and turns it up to 11. Honorable mentions. We've never used spell components on this server, stated by the primary DM during one of the rare times he was a player when we have had to go on literal quests for spell components for his games. Crossbows don't have to be loaded. Same situation as above, never told anyone they were wasting a feat with crossbow expert until he wanted to not have to worry about loading a crossbow. Oh, we add Arcana skill to counterspell checks. When I called him out for rolling a counterspell check at +11, again, first time any of us had ever heard that. Absolute hands down winner. Star Wars Fantasy Flight Games campaign. We've been running from an Imperial Inquisitor for like 6 sessions. She finally catches up to us with her crew. There's an absolutely massive f***ed up battle. The whole battle is its own horror story. She survives 30 wounds of total damage, including a point-blank thermal detonator explosion and having a TIE fighter force thrown at her, and ends up barely alive, pinned under rubble, and unconscious. I go to finish her off, and DM loses his ever-loving shit. Apparently, killing a helpless opponent is a dark side act, and if I did it, our force user, my in-character and out-of-character girlfriend, would get dark-sided. I had 3 ranks and a bonus die in deception, so I said, fine, I'll send her to get medical supplies, and while she's gone, I'll smother the Inquisitor and just say she died from her wounds while our Jedi is gone. DM completely refused to even allow the roll and put his foot down that even if our Jedi didn't know what I had done and wasn't there, she'd still get hit with dark side bullshit. I spent the last few weeks we were on that server making snarky comments about AoE dark side and contagious dark side, which he didn't appreciate. Had a DM who made a big bad evil guy that would paralyze characters if he looked at them. No save. However, it only worked on female player characters. Ew. Casters must make a grapple check to connect touch spells. Can't remember what edition we were playing, but in our campaign, characters could be of a special lineage referred to as blooded, and this would grant special powers depending on how much blood you had. You could gain blood by striking the killing blow on an opponent who had it, but only with a bladed weapon. The very nature of this led to those in the party who were blooded, about half, becoming much more powerful than the others, and basically sidelined the unblooded into secondary characters in the story. Now, I was playing a cleric who had blood, and the GM ruled that because clerics couldn't use bladed weapons, then I couldn't gain any blood. I was apparently physically incapable of even handling a butter knife to stab an opponent I had knocked unconscious with my mace. Rogue nerfs. The amount of games I've played where the 5-foot rule was removed or an enemy in combat can't be spooked by you being hidden. If I wanted to play solo assassin, I would have. Just because I crit one time and did 50 points of damage does not make me OP compared to the fighter doing 40 damage every round without crits. DM made an encounter that turned my melee-focused character blind. I was struck blind for multiple sessions and was unable to do anything about it. Then once it was cured, I was made blind again by the DM. Now I'm queasy around alcohol. I don't drink and neither do my player characters. A group I'm in started taking shots at every Nat 1 and Nat 20, which changes group dynamics. Not in a good way. You use investigation checks whenever you're looking for something. You use perception to see if you're aware of something. This ended up meaning that you never rolled perception because any attempt at looking for something was automatically investigation. Even looking up to the sky to see any smoke trails was investigation. Finding someone stealthing was investigation. Finding someone in a crowd was investigation. It was horrible because she only told us about this ruling after character generation and me picking a race and stat combo to have a good wisdom and racial proficiency in perception. No resurrection, which, to be fair, doesn't sound terrible by itself, until you only learn it's a rule after your character dies. There can be only one of each class type. This is when I broke off to DM my own game, and I let people be whatever they want, within the bounds of the rules, of course. Want a party of all wizards? Have at it. Don't be surprised when a boss one-shots your whole group, but you can do it. Crit Arcana does all sorts of wonderful shit. It literally resurrected someone during the campaign. Meanwhile, Crit Performance does nothing. The NPCs in the Packed Tavern don't even react. It was more than a little annoying to find I'd nerfed my own character by not taking proficiency in Arcana at first level. Pathfinder game. Weapon qualities only cost as their modifier and don't have a limit. A flaming, frosting, corrosive weapon plus 4 costs 8,000 gold pieces total. I stopped casting damaging spells because the melee characters were rolling the same number of dice on their normal attacks and adding power attack and strength mod. Oh, D&D 5th edition, my cleric has a 30% chance to fail to cast spells, wasting the action and slot if it fails, which it does extremely often. So I'm basically stuck as a shitty fighter. Our Bard and Wizard only have a 10% chance to fail, but they also have to roll wild magic when they do. Of course, it's for the story and a major plot point, for which it makes sense, but man does it make playing more of a chore than an enjoyable experience. Salutations, you sweet savory snickerdoodle you, and thank you for hanging out to the very end of this video. If you've got a terrible house rule someone brought to your table, we want to hear about it in the comments below. If you've got another story you'd like to share with the community, please feel free to drop it off at our subreddit, r/MrRipper, and there's a chance we'll end up sharing it on a video soon. If you're thinking, wow, I wish I had some stories to share on the official Mr. Ripper subreddit, r/MrRipper, If only I had a group to play with. Well, fret not, my tender little tater tot, because we thought of that, and I would like to steer you in the direction of Mr. Ripper's Group Finder Discord server, a Discord server we purpose-built to help you find a group to play with. Wow, fancy that. Incredible. This week, I hope that you pick a day and sleep in. I'm Dave Makes Noises. You can keep up with me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s. Ring the bell if you got big ding dong energy. We love you here at Rip Daddy's house, and we'll see you next time.